Hey, babies. Okay, so I trying to get my thoughts together. So I talked to a couple of people, some of my students and mentees. I talked to some different clients and just really thought about some things that I have been experiencing over the years that I've learned about manifesting, that I thought about when I was writing the manifesting Bible. And I wanted to do this video because I felt like there was something I needed to dive into deeper with you guys and to just share. Um, period. Because I feel a lot of us making the same mistakes, running into the same walls, um, struggling with the same thoughts. And I know that those things can be helped to get out of the way to help you manifest easier. Y'all are going to see me looking down because I literally have my notes right here because I want to cover a lot in a short amount of time because I don't want this to be like a 2-3 hour video. I want this to hopefully be 20-30 minutes. Um, and I want to dig deep enough to give you some ideas and some awareness and some ahas. And then we can keep going deeper in some future videos that I'm going to be doing here on the channel. So the thing that I want to say to y'all is listen, a lot of y'all think you're bad at manifesting. You're not. The truth is nobody taught you how to manifest in a body that was built to survive. Okay. Nobody taught you how to manifest in a body that is black or skin colored deeper. Okay, to get past the epigenetics, the science, the energy, the struggle, the turmoil, all the things that have been baked in to your DNA through the decades and the centuries, depending on where your ancestors came from, who you are, what you identify with, what community you grew up in, and so much more. Okay. So I want to talk about that and really hopefully set some of y'all free. Okay. I want to set you free from the thought that you're not enough. I want to set you free from the thought that you don't know what you're doing because you do. You do know what you're doing, but a lot of the times you're trying to force yourself to do something that doesn't fit your spirit, that doesn't flow with your soul, that doesn't align with what you believe internally. And until you really address those things and recognize them to get them out of the way, you're going to keep bumping up into them like they're a brick wall, keeping you held into your own internal prison. Because that's how it ends up feeling, right? I know. Been there, done that, broke fucking free. And now I want to help you guys do the same. So the first thing I want to do is to name the issue. And the issue is that you exist in a body, again, that was taught to survive. You exist in a body that was taught to survive turmoil, struggle, to get through, to have just enough. You exist with a psyche that was passed down from your ancestors and all the people that you love, mom, pop, G pop, and all of them, they went through it. They dealt with a lot of the struggles, and sometimes they didn't have names for it, right? They just listen, we know how to do what we got to do to get through. The problem is that keeps being passed down from generation to generation. And you see the people out there who seem to get it and they fly bright and shine big and they have all the things. And then you feel like, well, what's different? Why did they get it and I couldn't get it? What's wrong with me? Why am I not enough? Why is everything I'm doing not working? It can work, but we got to face some of these things and again get them out of the way. So you're told to think positive, right? That's the big one in the manifesting community. You're told to think positive. And we talk about the affirmations. Now, don't get me wrong, y'all, because I love a good affirmation. If y'all been rocking with me for any length of time on Facebook, you know I've done my challenge, my 90-day challenge in my Facebook group in past years with affirmations. I love a good affirmation. And as we get deeper into this over time, I'll break down why they work. But for here, because I want you to really get some things from this particular point that I'm making about how we've been manifesting wrong in Black bodies, you're taught to think positive when you hear most manifestation coaches, when you hear about the law of attraction, when you hear co-creation, when you hear just think it, speak it, focus on what you want. You've heard the tale of the two wolves, the one that you starve and the one that you feed. You hear all of these things that are focused on just think yourself into your blessings. And for some people that really can work, but oftentimes they don't have the baggage that you have. They don't have the struggle, the pain, the endurance that was literally baked into your DNA. They don't have that. So they can be over there thinking positive and eating a pizza and sipping on a milkshake and manifesting and visualizing, and it happened. And there's nothing wrong with that. Ain't no shade. Because listen, I celebrate the people that don't have a lot of trauma. The fact is, it ain't a lot of them. Okay. But oftentimes, even if they do have trauma, when you see somebody that's able to manifest a little bit easier, it's because they've had family situations that were different. Okay. So bringing it back to black bodies, let's call the myth out. Everybody ain't growing up in the ghetto. Everybody ain't growing up poor. Everybody ain't growing up on drugs and cracked out and hold out and on a stripper pole and stealing and killing and murdering and doing all the shit that the media will try to trick you into thinking we're doing in dire straits, or that we're doing in numbers that are so astronomically different from other communities. That's not true. It ain't true. It ain't true. Mm. That being said, when you're trying to think positive and you think, I would love to. So I'll use one of my real things. I am working on a farm. Okay. That's one of the things that I'm currently working to create. So I've been doing different things. The people in my inner circle see me working, they see me cultivating, they see me building relationships, and they're like, she really gonna do this, because they see me putting in that work ethic and that belief and that action forward, right? So now they can see the vision that I've been working on this past year. Okay. So let's say I'm thinking positive about my farm and I'm daydreaming and I'm visualizing and I'm seeing all the things and I'm doing my affirmations and I'm journaling about it. I don't journal. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's say I'm doing all the right things and yet it's not happening, because what you believe internally truly takes precedence over what you speak, what you feel, what your psyche holds, what your DNA holds takes precedent and has more power and more say so over what you think and what you speak. So if I'm thinking, oh God, I'm so thankful for my farm. Thank you to all my angels bringing my relationship and my resources and my fruit bushes and my da 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 and all blah blah blah. But I'm feeling the turmoil and the pain of my ancestors, of my parents, of my friends, of my community, the weight of existing in this black body, then that, if it's the primary thing that has force and has bigger energy, is going to overtake whatever thoughts or speaking I may do. So I may be doing all the right things and working my ass off to manifest, and it's just not working, right? The next thing is you're told to visualize that abundance. And again, that's going to work for some people. It just does. I'm one of those people that I truly can visualize things and speak things, and it starts to pop off and happen. Okay. But not everybody's senses operate that way, right? Some people have varying degrees of their sense. We all have clairs. We all have sight, hearing, taste, touch, and all the senses. But I like to explain it this way. If we looked at it on a scale, and that's not really how it works, but just to help you understand, if we looked at it on a scale of 0 to 100, everybody exists on this scale at a different space. So I might be 98 while you're 25, and that person is 57, and that person is 62. And that doesn't mean anybody is better than anybody. It means we're dialed in to something a little bit stronger, like turning the dial on a radio station. It's more static, yours more clear, right? Everybody's dialed in differently. And that's why some people can see a thing, some people can hear things, some people can feel a thing. So when you're trying to operate in that way, and that may not be your strongest sense, and it's competing with whatever exists internally, that's going to make it harder for that visualization to work, for that good feeling that you get when you're visualizing to last. Okay. The other thing I want to call out is you're told to trust the process. What process? Because history has shown us over and over and over again, no matter the process, that it is not put in place to benefit us. If we look at the dismantling of DEI programs, if we look at the dismantling of affirmative action programs. Now, if you Black, you really understand that those things weren't really truly benefiting us the way that they could have been intended. There were other groups and parties and cultures and communities that were still benefiting more than us, and we were still working our ass off and doing twice the work to get different opportunities and positions, right? And that's part of the struggle. So again, we're gonna talk about these pieces and parts to put the puzzle together. But you're told to trust the process. And what you see over and over and over again is that the process doesn't work for you. if we look at Black Wall Street, if we look at Tulsa, if we look at all these wealthy Black communities that were created, if we look at the town that existed before Central Park and Guntersville Lake and Lake Lanier and all these different places, every time we amassed wealth, every time we came together as community, every time we let our strength do what it needed to do because we know how to do the damn thing, other groups said, oh, they're doing too much and we're afraid of them. Let's torch this shit and tear it down. Let's wipe them out and put a body of water on top of it and rewrite history, right? When people create things and do inventions, we see that most often they were pushed to the side and somebody else took credit for their work. And then now 30, 40, 50 years later, 100 years later, we're still finding out the true people behind actual inventions and patents and other things, right? So when you take all of that into consideration, you may be thinking, you may be visualizing, you may be speaking, you may be trying to feel. But if all of that hardship and all of that pain is still deeply embedded in there and you're hyper aware of what's going on in society, if that is what's bigger and taking up more space, that is the thing that's going to be louder and take over all the positive things that you may be trying to manifest. And again, it's not about you doing it wrong. This is not a mindset issue. This is a body memory issue. Okay. So when we talk about history, let's talk about slavery for a minute. And I struggled with whether I really wanted to get into this conversation. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. Let me just say that, some years. And I kept talking myself out of it. And I kept just researching and looking at things and experimenting for myself and working with clients. And I finally said, I need to. And whatever comes out of it comes out of it, because I feel like there's something I need to say that's going to reach the right persons, right? But I feel like slavery needs to be included in this discussion, because this is where we start to talk about epigenetics and how our DNA gets tagged with or coded with memory, with the repercussions of experiences. I'll explain it that way to keep it simple. Enslavement wasn't just a physical labor for a lot of our ancestors. And this is whether you came through the slave trade on the ships. This is whether your ancestors existed here and they were stolen and kidnapped into slavery. All of this still plays a part in this, okay? Your identity was disrupted. And I keep saying yours because you are a part of them. They became you. You are the manifested ancestor through your DNA, okay? Not only was it physical labor, but the identity was disrupted. The language was stripped. This is why you can be speaking an affirmation or an incantation, or you can be looking at a picture right now. I'm looking at one of my plants that I love. It's a ponytail plant. When I edit this video, I'll see, can I take a picture and add it in? But I brought her upstairs in my office because it's big. I love it. She sits in all her glory. But now I got to take her outside because this is not really the space for her. It's a little too humid up here in my office. She's browning a little bit. So I'm like, I got to put you out on the deck where you can shine in all your glory and do your damn thing. Because, baby, you're supposed to be regal and full, okay? I have to let her speak her language and not try to force her to speak my language. Hopefully that makes sense so you can see what happened with the ancestors, right? They were put in a place that they did not belong. They were put in situations that they did not belong. Their language was stripped. Their identity was stripped. Their names were stripped. Their culture was they tried to strip the culture away from them. They tried to strip community away from them. They tried to strip family away from them. So imagine watching your offspring, your babies, your baby girls and boys that you birthed out of your bodies being stripped and sold and stolen and kidnapped. Imagine your wife being mutilated or assaulted, raped. Okay. Imagine your husband being humiliated, right? Imagine the competition between house and field. Okay. And how it was always put in play to have somebody that would tell on somebody, to have somebody that would infiltrate and snitch. So you don't even know who you can trust at this point. Imagine having to live that every single day. And it strips away at you and eats away at you and gnaws at you until parts of you are just missing. Parts of you don't feel whole anymore. That was just an inkling of what they might have gone through, right? Imagine having to go through that. And then you're moved all around like chattel, like animals. You're degraded and dehumanized. and still having to fight through that to remember who you are and hold yourself strong and hold your head up. Imagine the strength and the courage that they had to embody, okay, to just survive, just survive. Hyper awareness, suppression of self, obedience, bowing down to something or someone just to literally survive and stay safe. Think about yourself in a job. You might not like the job, but you got to go show up every day. You got to do the work to get that paycheck and pay them bills, right? But imagine that 1,000 times worse, just to survive every day and wake up in the morning. You get what I'm saying? The toll that that takes on the psyche. Now, going back to epigenetics, what happens is when we have those type of experiences, our DNA doesn't completely change the DNA, but think of it like if this is your DNA block, think of it like that experience putting a tag, like a keychain on that block. And so as we reproduce and we have babies and generations come forth, that DNA tag still exists and is replicating and reproducing. And so, even though we have not gone through that particular type of enslavement, we are still feeling the ramifications and repercussions of that every single day. Even if we don't talk about it, even if we grew up in a wealthy family, even if we grew up not in wealth, but still somewhat balanced. And then imagine if you did grow up in a lower class or lower income or poverty level experience, all of that history and your current experience just kind of mingling and dancing together, creating chaos and trauma over and over and over again. Okay. Our ancestors did not get to live in possibility, they had to live in protection. I really want you to sit with that for a minute. Every day they had to wake up trying to figure out how to survive in that, trying to figure out how to exist, trying to plot and plan and sneak in order to put things together to get away from it. Okay. To be a Harriet Tubman and do the Underground Railroad. Right. I want you to recognize that trauma doesn't just disappear. It doesn't just go away because we don't talk about it. It doesn't go away because we say affirmations. Trauma does not just disappear, but it can begin to dissipate when we go to therapy, when we talk to our coaches and our counselors, when we go to our psychiatrist or our psychologist, when we talk to our medical doctor and we address our physical health, when we eat healthy, when we move, when we exercise, when we talk to our besties, when we play pool, when we have a glass of wine with our sweetie, when we play with our kids, right? It doesn't just dissolve like it never existed, but it does dissipate over time and make room for you to create new tags on that DNA through new experiences, through new memories, through new mindset shifts, through deeper levels of healing. Think of it like you got on 10 layers of clothes. And as you begin to take those layers off, as you work through the things that you're feeling, as you work through the rage, because a lot of us have an unspoken rage that just sits there. We don't know what to call it. We don't know how to express it safely. We don't know what to name it. We don't know what to do with it. So it sits there because we are raging at what's happening in society right now. We're raging at what we went through in our childhoods with our parents because they were traumatized. We're raging because we are feeling some of the things our ancestors went through. And we don't know how to deal with that. So we just let it sit there and we silently look at it and observe it and say, okay, I'm gonna keep doing this just to keep getting through. Okay. So we have to work through it because if not, we keep passing it on from generation to generation. And I know that I haven't quite got to the manifesting yet, but I need to give you this foundation to help you understand why you've been struggling. We'll get there in a minute. Okay. Your body, as you sit in that trauma response over and over and over again, begins to carry heightened cortisol levels and continually sits in a cortisol response loop. Okay. You sit in hypervigilance where you're always looking. You're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're always waiting for something to happen. A lot of you know what I'm talking about, because when you get a blessing, you get that check to catch all the bills up. You paid your car note, your romance is going good, your children are doing good in school, something's going right for you. In your mind, you're still thinking, I know something gonna go wrong. I know, like I know the storm finna hit. What's finna happen? The other shoe gonna drop because something always happens. You see what I'm saying? That heightened level, that hypervigilance, that stress response over and over just wears your body down. And think of it this way. I always tell my students, you got to look at yourself and recognize that everybody has an energetic capacity. Everybody has an emotional capacity, like money in the bank. If you got only $2,000 in the bank and you want to buy a sofa for $2,800, you don't have enough capacity to buy that sofa. You either got to pull from something else to make sure you get that 2,800 plus tax and delivery fees and whatever else, or you got to wait till you build some more capacity by getting some other things off your plate and then stacking that money up to go get that sofa. It's the same thing with manifesting, with creating the life that you desire. If a lot of your capacity is stuck here because you're ignoring the trauma and trying to keep it at bay, you don't have enough capacity to give to the thing that you truly desire. That's why you can manifest a little bit and it'll come, then you lose. You get the check, then shit happens and everything starts pouring down, raining again, right? That's why you call the romance in and then it goes bust and y'all are at each other's face and fighting all the time because you don't have enough capacity to maintain what you've called in. Okay. Next, I want to talk about the fear of instability or loss. Okay. Because I just called some of that out, but I also want you to look at where in your life are you always operating from a place of less than, an expectation that you'll never have enough, an expectation that something will always be wrong. So if you're expecting that because that's what you know, that's what you've always experienced, then where do you have the capacity to call this thing in and hold it so that you can coexist in this experience that you desire? You don't. If you're operating in that fear of loss, in that expectation of loss, of struggle, of strife, that's always going to be bigger than whatever mindset shift you're trying to occupy, whatever desire you're wanting to call in. So think of it this way: your body remembers what your mind was never taught. So you might have grown up and loved grandma and G-pop, but they didn't have a lot to give you, for many of us, outside of Christianity. Now I can look back and see some things my grandmother did and other elders did that I'm like, oh, now I can recognize they were doing hoodoo. Whether they knew that's what it was or not, I don't know. Now I can look back and see, holy smack. Okay. But when I was younger, everything was given to me through the lens of Christianity, right? So that's all I was taught. I wasn't taught about intentional living, manifesting the life that I create. I wasn't taught healing through the lens of wellness and self-care and self as a priority in order to thrive so that I could help other people thrive. Okay. I was taught sacrifice. I was taught strife and struggle. I was taught selflessness so that I could give to the church, to other people, and be Christ like, all ass backwards. But they taught me out of the goodness of their heart based on what they thought and believed, right? They did the best they could. So that's where my mind was centered, but my body knows what my mind was never taught on both sides. My body remembers the power of my ancestors because of that epigenetic, right? That DNA. But my body also remembers the struggle of my ancestors and those tags. And so your mind can get caught in that loop trying to figure out, well, what truth do I believe? What is really existing most powerfully so that I can follow that thing? And if you were never taught mm, power of words, the power of healing, the power of goodness, your body's memory is stronger. And if your body solely remembers the pain and the strife through DNA, then that's what's going to be the biggest God in your life. That's what's going to sit on the throne in your life and rule everything. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Now, how this ties to manifesting is number one, safety. If all you fear is fear, all you feel rather is fear, if all you feel is strife, if all you feel is struggle and that contained rage trying to bust out, if all you remember is the pain that you saw people in and the financial hoops people had to jump through, all you remember is going along to get along and being selfless and all these other things, likely you do not feel safe in your own body. You don't know what it feels like to be just grounded in your own self, in your own body, in the moment, and truly feel peace and contentment. It is not impossible to manifest in other emotional states. I've used rage and everything else to manifest, but it's a lot harder to keep it if you can't get from that intensity to the peace and balance to co-create the experience and maintain it. Okay. Manifesting requires openness. What is that old saying? A closed hand? You might not lose nothing, but you damn sure don't get fat either. So if you're manifesting like this, trying to hold tightly to everything, trying to control everything because you're afraid of what's going to happen if you let go of control, it's going to be really hard to get what you want. It's going to be really hard to create the outcomes that you desire because you're going to be holding on so tight that things can only flow very smallly through the tube of opening that you might have, or you might close off all the opportunities and things get rerouted away from you because you're clenched in and shut down. Manifesting requires an expectation of receiving, openness, allowing, availability, right? You've got to be open in order for things to come. Again, let's use the bank account example. Most of us have probably switched bank accounts at some point, right? I have bank accounts for my business. I have bank accounts for myself. I got savings and all these different accounts, right? But if somebody wants to send me some money and they remember I used to bank at Hoo Hoo Bank, but I'm now at JoJo Bank and they send it to Hoo Hoo Bank, it can't get to me. That account is closed. You get what I'm saying? So I have to make sure that the communication is open and they say, oh, I want to bless you, Jay. Haha, thank you, baby. Here's my information. You can sell it to me right over here. Okay, you can Venmo me. I got you ready because I'm open, I'm available. But if they can't contact me, if they can't reach me, then everything is closed down, shut down tight. There's no way for it to get to me. Okay. But your body is operating from impact as well. And so not only are you having to operate openness here and here, but in your fit and here, I mean heart, your psyche, your spirit, but you also have to work in your physical body to be open because everything is energy. So if your vibration is just completely shut down, I mean, from the top of your head to the soles of your feet, everything's just like this. Nope. You're like a tortoise in the shell, completely covered up, unavailable, unseen. If everything is operating like that, your body is bracing for impact. You don't feel safe. You're shut down. You may be putting the work in. You may be doing the manifesting rituals. You may be journaling. You may be doing the affirmations, all the things, paying for retreats, paying for coaching, paying for all this stuff. No matter what you do, if you are not available emotionally and energetically, it can't get through. And if you work your ass off and somehow get it, whatever that it is, you're not going to be able to maintain it because you're going to go from this to this at some point. And hopefully this is making sense. Okay. I want to go back to culture and religion for just a minute. And this is not a shot or shot fired at any one particular religion or spiritual journey. But I grew up Christian, so that's what I'm going to focus on. And many of us in the Black community are raised in that lens, okay? We're taught suffering equals righteousness. We're taught humility equals shrinking. I got to compress myself down. We are taught that waiting is virtuous. You got to wait on the Lord. Oh God, when God is ready, he's going to give it to you. You got to wait on the Lord. Some folks been waiting 50 fucking years and they ain't got what they was waiting on. I mean, what do we like to say? Call a spade a spade. And some people been waiting and it ain't happened. So is that the Lord or is that you or we're happy? I'm just saying. We're taught that desire is selfish. We're taught that desire is sinful and it's dangerous. If I want something, I can't be out there talking about it because I can't be blessed and so over there suffering and going through. That's not God-like. That's not Christ-like. We're taught to give everything. This is where you get people giving their light bill and their rent and their car note and all this grocery money and all this stuff and having nothing and being broke and destitute while the church is still prospering that they're going to. And they go on every Sunday waiting on the Lord. And this is not every church. Again, I'm not shot. This ain't shots fired at anybody in particular. But this is why a lot of people get harmed because they're giving, trying to be open, trying to be available, trying to sow into the spirit to receive what they desire, but they're sowing into unequal ground. They are not equally yoked for the people they're trying to connect with. They are not sowing into fertile ground where they are. That's not where they're supposed to be planted and rooted. Okay. So you have to look at your upbringing. You have to figure out how it makes sense for you. For me, I had to recognize, and this is not all teaching everywhere, but what I grew up in, right? And I had to recognize that I had been taught to be small. I had been taught to downplay myself. I had been taught to shrink and be invisible. I had been taught to be selfless and love everybody and give everything to everybody and put everybody else first. So it constantly left me lacking and wanting while I was seeing everybody else prosper and get what they desired and get what they wanted. I was still going through and struggling. And then those same people would turn around and judge me like, well, why you can't get what you need? What you doing wrong? Something must be wrong with you. And a lot of y'all have heard that, I bet. So it makes you question yourself. It makes you second guess yourself. It makes you doubt yourself. And when you doubt yourself, you take yourself further and further and further away from the thing that you truly desire. Is this starting to make sense now? Are y'all starting to see how the pieces all come together? Right. So you're trying to manifest while feeling guilty for wanting more. That's really, I want to say that to sum it all up. You're trying to manifest what you desire, but at the same time, you're not convinced that you deserve it or that you can have it. And you often feel guilty for wanting it when you see somebody else suffering and going through more than what you're going through. And when you manifest the thing that you want, and it's this big, beautiful, glorious thing, and you got it, then you start to feel guilty because you see somebody over there going through, and it's like, well, God, how can I have this? If I'm a good person, shouldn't I share with them? So you end up giving and putting yourself in pain, destroying your own heart to see somebody else thrive. Isn't this shit crazy? Like, when you, man, whew, when you really think about some of the crazy ass shit we were taught out of godliness. Yeah, okay. Then I want to point out the political stuff, okay? I really I want to make this clear. We are living in a system, even right now in 2026. What is this? March 30th, 2026. We are living in a system that to this day still does not want to acknowledge the trauma that our ancestors went through. Okay. The global conversation is happening. And the US was one of 3 countries that said no. Like, I can't make this shit up. Listen, there would have been no repercussions. It wasn't no money to be paid. It wasn't nothing for them to do other than to just simply say, we acknowledge that this was wrong and this was harmful. And the US stood up and pulled its pants up and straightened itself out and said, no, we refuse. So we are existing in a system right here in 2026 that is still trying to strip our humanity from us. We are existing in a system that still refuses to acknowledge the very horror and trauma and intentional evil that was done to our ancestors and that has in part played a role in who we are today. We are existing in a system that still refuses to say, we see you. We see how the very fact that everything was stripped from you and still you survived and you have still been amazing and you have still done great things and invented most of the shit that we use here in the US to exist at this moment in time. Doorbells, telephones, 3D cinematics, just to name a couple of things. Voicemail, bed frames and beds. I just, when I think about the gravity of that, it's no wonder we're struggling to manifest. It's no wonder so many are struggling to curate a life that they thoroughly enjoy. And I'm not saying everybody in this struggle, and even if you're struggling with it, everybody's struggle doesn't look the exact same, right? But this is why I had to have this conversation, because I listen, I've lived on both sides of the train tracks. I have experienced different things financially, like struggling to make ends meet, going through, going without. And I've experienced the having more than enough and being all right. I've experienced genuine love and beautiful romance, right? I've experienced great friendships, and I've also experienced heartache and loss in relationships, right? And I've studied this for a long time. So now I wanted to get into the meat. Is now I'll tell you a little bit about me that we didn't cover some of the meat of it, and then we'll get into manifesting. Okay. I've been doing this. I'm 46 now. I've been doing this since I was 19. I've been studying people literally. It was my job. If you don't know, I've done hospice, end of life care. I've done in-home rehab. And I literally started doing that when I was 18, 19 years old. I started in a rehab slash nursing home facility, nursing home on one side, rehab on the other, for them to come after strokes and injuries and surgeries and stuff and get rehabilitated to go back home, or nursing home if they had nowhere else to go when it was time for them to have help. Then I moved into in-home care, and I was doing that same work in-house with people. I was a certified nursing assistant, and I've listened to couples, I've listened to singles, I've listened to children, I've listened to the parents, I've listened to the elders. I've worked with different cultures, right? I got certified as a fitness trainer. I was in the gym and I worked with personal clients in their home. We did corporate workshops. I became a licensed massage therapist at that time as well. I became a certified holistic coach at that time as well. Then I got my bachelor's in counseling psychology. Then I got my master's in general psychology. Then I went into my first PhD program in general psychology with cognition and instruction, how the brain works, how to teach, how to educate, how to design material for people to synthesize it, how to help people learn, right? Now I'm in another doctoral program in EDD. And I think I'm going to finish in educational psychology. I was looking at leadership, but I think I'm going to finish in educational psychology now. But the point is, 25 years of nothing but studying people. Oh, and I did forget to tell you, in my 20s, I was in ministry, right? I told you I grew up Christian. I was groomed in my 20s to become a pastor. That's what I was supposed to do. And I walked away at some point. I think I was 27, 28, 29, because I realized that was not the journey I was supposed to be on. I was letting everybody else dictate, but that's not what I was supposed to be doing. Okay. I've gone to theological seminary. And I can't do it now because I don't study it like that anymore. But at one point, baby, I could tell you the Bible front and back. I could quote any scripture you could ask me. I could break it down, tell you what it was. Okay. Not now. And that's intentional. I stopped studying it like that because it was not the thing that ruled my life anymore. At that point, that was my guide. That was it. Hey, that was beat into me. You get what I'm saying? And then I gave myself freedom to just exist and research and study and learn. So I've studied Hinduism, I've studied Buddhism, I've studied um, Catholicism, I've studied different religions and different spiritual paths, not because I necessarily wanted to practice any of them in whole, but because I wanted to understand people. I wanted to understand the beliefs and the processes, right? I studied hoodoo. I've studied some of the ATRs, very limited because that's not my path. Um, but I've studied people. And so I've been learning and researching and experimenting. I've been trained to be a researcher. Again, I went through a whole PhD program already. So I'm trained to research. So when I tell you I've been researching, that's literally what I mean. I've been reading articles, magazine articles, educational publications, journals. I talk to people, I interview people, I survey people. I've been doing this for 25 years in this lane. So everything I'm telling you today, I have lived, I have seen, I have experienced through myself or through other people sharing their experiences with me. And this is why I got to the point of recognizing this conversation has to be had. You are not struggling to manifest if you are in a Black body because you don't know how to manifest. You are struggling because you're in a Black body and your body is remembering. And you got to go deep enough to heal and let that trauma dissipate so that you have room to breathe and let the things settle in deep enough that you want to become true, the new truths, the old truths, the ancestral truths. You are more than suffering, you are more than pain. They were powerful. Let's not forget that. Anybody that can go through that extreme level of suffering and still exist every single day, powerful as fuck. Okay? That's why they're scared of us. That's why when you turn on the radio, they're always giving you the program of Black people killing people. That's why when you turn on the TV, they're always highlighting that because they want you to think that's all that we are. That's why they're always hyping propaganda of Black men and women at each other's throats and don't like each other. And listen, that shit ain't true. I don't give a fuck what nobody say. It ain't nobody walking the face of this earth or other that will ever be able to convince me that Black men ain't fucking beautiful and amazing. Listen, I love them down. Do you hear me? And I love me some us. I love Black people, period. And I love me some Black girl magic. Okay. Love me some us. Can't convince me that Black women ain't God in this human form. Right. But we are surrounded by all the things and people and propaganda that try to make us think otherwise. And when that's what you see predominantly, when you go to work and you're overlooked for promotions, when you go to work and you work your ass off, and then somebody half as educated, half as experienced as you get the job and gets more money to become your boss, they expect you to train them. What the fuck? No, we ain't doing that. When you are in business and they will argue you down and try to cheat you and then go somewhere else and pay full price and pay them more than what you were charging just because of this color of your skin. When you go to the store and people watch you and assume that you're going to do some bullshit, but you got more money than them in your pocket, right? When you are assumed to be uneducated just because you talk and you got a little hood accent or you're from the country or you use our vernacular, right? Just because your hair is a little funky and a little curvy and a little curly and in all of its gloriousness and it's not straight and pressed, they assume that you're not polished enough and professional enough. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. Uh, when we are exposed to this every single day, no matter what you may be trying to speak, if that takes root, it's in competition with what you're trying to create. Y'all get what I'm saying? So you have to be able to dig all of that out and replant the seeds that remind you you are motherfucking gold. You are absolutely powerful. Baby, you are it, and there's nobody else like you. Ain't no replica that could ever be made to be you. Ain't nobody else that can be you but you, and you are bad at being you. You hear what I'm saying? You a whole badass. You understand? You are glory in human form. You are divinity. You are power and love in human form. But until you know that with every fiber of your being, and allow that to really be true, you're fighting yourself when it comes to manifesting. So hopefully everything else I shared up till now makes sense. Okay. What I want you to understand now is manifesting isn't just about what you think. It's about what your body feels safe enough to hold. Let me say that again. Manifesting isn't just about what you think. It's about what your body feels safe enough to hold. Think of your body as a container. And if it is full of all that bullshit from out there, you don't have enough room to hold what you need to conjure up your reality that you desire. So again, you got to get rid of all that gunk. You got to heal. You got to self-care. You got to prioritize wellness and well-being. Feeling safe in your body, feeling safe in your environment, feeling safe with the people around you. You got to prioritize that. And as you feel that and your body begins to accept that is true and acknowledge that is real, then that's the strong foundation to then manifest and do everything else that you desire to do, right? If your body doesn't feel safe, if your mind doesn't feel safe, you're going to keep self-sabotaging. If you expect loss, if your body is programmed to look for loss, you're not going to trust what comes in. So even when a blessing comes, even when a good person arrives, you're going to be like, that's some bullshit. I don't trust that. And you're going to move your own blessing right out the way. If you're in survival mode, even expansion feels dangerous. And when you feel like you're in danger, your brain is going to signal that alert, danger, danger, warning, warning, and you're going to back up and run away from the very thing that you've been trying to call in. So what I want you to do to start changing that, because now that we talked about all that stuff, I want to give you something to take away to work on to make immediate change. Okay. Start noticing when your body tightens around receiving. If I walked up to you and said, here goes a bottle of water. Can you accept it? And say, oh, thank you very much. It's sealed, it's closed. I ain't done nothing to it, right? But if I just saw you were hot and sweaty and I offered you a bottle of water, would you? I don't trust that shit. They probably spiked it. That's some bullshit. I don't want it. Right? Or would you be like, thank you very much? Now, let's be honest. In some circumstances, no, don't accept it. You don't know them people. We good. But if you know me, you understand? If you know that I'm a safe person, if I'm your bestie, if I'm trusted, if it's a family member or somebody you know, coworker, whatever, pay attention to how your body responds when they give you something. Do you immediately, thank you? But your initial reaction was to shrink back or pull back or go into defense mode. I don't know what they about to give me. I don't know about this shit. Pay attention to that. Start to take note of how you feel when opportunities arise to bless you and pour into you. Next, I want you to pay attention to where you expect things to go wrong. What you're doing is noticing the pattern so that you can start changing the pattern, because you can't change what you don't recognize. So you got to take notice of the patterns first. Okay. So as blessings come, as good things happen, where are you expecting for them to go wrong and sideways? Where are you vigilant and on the lookout all the time? And what's the physiological response in your body? What emotions immediately come up? What thoughts immediately come up? Pay attention to that. You can journal them down. You can share them with a friend for accountability. You can just be aware of them. Take note, because then those are the places that you want to be intentional about changing the behavior. And one of the simple things you can do, let's say you notice you tense up every time somebody wants to give you something. Choose somebody safe and choose the safe space. It could be bestie at home, it could be hubby, it could be girlfriend, it could be child, it could be whoever. Choose somebody safe and have them get different items around the house and practice receiving. Here you go, babe. Here you go, mom. Here you go, dad. Here you go, whoever, whatever. Practice allowing them to give you something and checking in with your body and seeing how you feel and reminding yourself that you're safe. Practice that over and over and over again until you start to see a difference in how you feel, how your body responds, the thoughts that enter your mind. And as you start to see a difference and feel different, celebrate that, honor that, acknowledge that, and then continue to build on that. But that's something easy that you can do. Okay. I want you to remember you're not broken. You've just been bracing. You've just been protecting yourself. And now it's time to come out of fight mode and out of protection mode. Okay. I want you to pay attention to the patterns that we've talked about, those couple of things. How do you feel when you're receiving? What are you noticing in your mindset? How's your body activating or responding? Start there, because you got to address that first. Okay. And we'll keep talking in coming videos, but start there. What is your response? How do you feel? Because until you notice that and until you can start to change that behavior and figure out where it's coming from, you're going to keep repeating it in different ways. You may address it here and it's going to sneak up over here. You may address it there and it's going to sneak up here, right? So you got to notice what's happening and why and with whom and where. And as you begin to start to notice those patterns, you work on changing the adverse response, changing the immediate response to something positive. Speaking peace into your body, breathing through it and stop being like this and start relaxing, taking deep breaths, right? Again, change the pattern of how you initially respond. That's the first thing you've got to do. And then each video I'll keep sharing with you. But hopefully you now understand a little bit better why if you're Black, if you're in a Black body, and even I will say broadly people of color, but I'm specifically talking for us in this video, right? If you catch me live right now, or if you're catching the replay at some other point in time, hopefully you now better understand why you've been having the responses you've been having, why it's been a challenge to manifest, or even if you do get the thing, it's been hard to hold on to it, or when you're trying to do certain things, it can feel like it's not working. Okay. So the first step is noticing the patterns and making that small change. And then we'll keep working through in the coming videos. So make sure that you stay tuned. Okay. Couple of things I want to give you to remember. This is not a mindset issue. This is a body memory issue. Remember, I said that and I meant it. You're not doing anything wrong. You just got to reprogram some things. Okay. You've probably been trying to manifest from a nervous system that was trained for survival and a body that was trained for survival. It is pretty damn hard to manifest and keep things in that space. You got to come out of survival mode. Okay. If you've been feeling guilty for wanting more and wondering why you're not getting it, there's your clue. Because you've been feeling guilty. And that guilt is surpassing whatever good you're trying to bring in. It's like gobble, 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 and tearing it down. So you got to address that guilt and deal with it and heal it and release it and allow it to dissipate. Okay. Some of you even probably have survivor's guilt, whether you are feeling the survivor's guilt coming through the ancestral lineage, whether you had a brother, sister, cat, rat, dog, bestie, somebody else that's going through a struggle, somebody else that unalived themselves because the pressures of life got to be too big, somebody else that may have had medical challenges and maybe they left way sooner than you think they should have left this earth. And you might be dealing with survivor's guilt as well. And that's stopping you from manifesting. Okay. You survived trauma and they went through trauma, but they didn't come out like you. They're still broken. They turned to drugs or alcohol or in the street doing something. Maybe they're homeless. There's so many ways that survivor's guilt can show up and many reasons why. Okay. But if you're dealing with that, that's going to block you from manifesting as well. Okay. I want you to sit with this before you start like doing all this journaling. I want you to sit with this. Let it just matriculate through. Just work through your senses. Let your mind process it for a day or two before you start to take action. Just be still. And then if you feel led to journal, let it out. If you feel led to talk to a friend, let it out. If you feel led to speak it out into the ether, do whatever you've got to do to start releasing it and start taking action on some of the things I said. Okay. If you got questions, check the information in the video description. You can join us. You can always email me and ask me your question, and I'll try to do a video later to answer it. But if you really want support, join us in the God State portal, because this is a part of what we're talking about moving forward, in addition to all the other amazing stuff that we've got in there for students and mentees. But this is a large part of the discussion moving forward, is manifesting. And I probably will change the name and call it something different. But I don't care whether you call it manifesting or law of attraction or co-creation or curation or intentional living or whatever. It's all about creating the life that you truly desire, right? Lastly, I want you to think about this. You have a right to be and experience anything that you can desire. It is your birthright. Don't ever let anybody else tell you different from this moment forward. You have a right to be and experience anything that your heart desires. Sit with that. Okay. Mwah. I love you. Thank you for you guys that were able to watch live. Again, if you have questions, pop them in the comments or shoot me an email. Join us in the God State Portal community if you want more direct support and mentorship and ongoing help in community. And make sure that you tune into the next videos, because I will continue to go deeper in this. And hit those buttons, y'all. Like, share, and subscribe so we can grow this community. I love you and thank you for being a part of my online family. You're so welcome. You're so welcome, love. Pop your questions in the comments and I'll get to them. And I'll see you guys next time.